We're happy to have Pastor Frederick Arnett and Sister Helen Arnett interviewing with us today, and they are certainly, both of them are very busy people at Calvary Bible Church, and they've been around for a very long time. So welcome.
Thank you for having us.
And we're going to jump right in. Pastor Arnett, now, I've been around at Calvary Bible Church for about 34 years, and I've seen the ministries that you've been involved in over the years. And perhaps we could start with Ambassadors for Christ.
Okay.
Would you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay, Ambassadors for Christ started in the 60s. Of course, it was started by Brother Leonard Phillips. Most of the older folks in Calvary remember Leonard Phillips, Gertrude Phillips, Leonard Phillips' sister, who sang in the choir as well, and also Keith Phillips was very much involved. I came on the scene in 1975, and when Keith went off to Prairie in Canada, I took over the Ambassadors for Christ. I can truly say that we went in every area of this island, from Fox Hill to Gambier, Bay Street to South Beach. Adelaide Village, yes. We have been in all of these different areas. And we have individuals in Calvary Bible Church right now who serve as deacon that came to know the Lord under the ministry of the street meeting.
Wow.
There are many things that I can recall. At one point we used to go out and for instance, the retirement park, I remember very vividly going there, and we would bring people to Calvary Bible Church. We would cook lunch for them on the Sunday. We would meet and they would eat lunch at the Christian Counseling Center. And we brought a number of people who came to know the Lord through our street ministry. And I really want to thank God for that ministry. I think it's a ministry not necessarily having to do what we did, but I think is a ministry that should be looked at again.
To be continued.
To be revived in some form.
Yes.
Maybe not preaching, but just handing out tracts and witnessing one-on-one can be an area that I am convinced that God can and has used in the past.
And Retirement Park is that park opposite the Paradise Island Bridge.
Opposite the bridge, yes.
Some young people may not know
where it is. Thank you very much. Yes, yes.
And Sister Helen, now I know you're going way back to the time when we had our first missionary.
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit to that, please?
In the early 70s, I think it was about 70, 71, we went on a trip to Guatemala, and we spent about 3 weeks there. We stayed a few days in the city, and then we went in the jungles where Irene Pons and her husband Alberto, their work was really centered. And we lived there, and we really mingled with the natives. Even though we couldn't speak the language or the dialect, we were able to have ministry because Irene spoke their language fluently.
And you were on short-term mission, or you just went to visit her?
I think it was more short-term missions. You know, we went there, and then that's not the only short-term mission that I've gone on. I've been into Haiti, but not with Phyllis Newby was a missionary out of Jamaica under another umbrella, and on the North Coast, they call it Bombardopolis. I lived there like about 3 weeks.
And how long have you been at Calvary?
I've been at Calvary from the inception.
All right.
And been
Still
through
here.
all the ministries and the youth camp like Word of Life
Yes.
and whatever they have. I've been
So
a
you
part of
two
it.
met at Calvary Bible Church?
Yes, in
Aha.
ministry. In ministry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because along with the Ambassadors for Christ, we also had a cottage prayer meeting.
Okay. What was
And I
that
think
about?
the cottage prayer meeting was basically where we came together and pray for the
For the
ministry,
ministry, yes.
and pray for persons who might be sick, who we encountered during ministry and visit. And so we met, and then on Sundays, in the early days of the Ambassadors for Christ, we also went into Sandilands Hospital and visited seniors.
Okay.
So we had quite a vibrant ministry.
And about how many people went with you on these?
Like 12 to 15, we had
Right.
quite a population of senior people, like the late Edmund Hall, who was from, at that time, from Faith Temple, Brother Brian from Salvation Army, and so we had quite a group, quite a group.
Okay, and while we're still back in those early days, would you tell me a little bit about Irene Pons?
Irene
who
Pons,
she was?
is the late Dansbury Hudson's sister,
Okay.
and she was the first
Missionary.
Bahamian missionary that
Yeah.
came from our church, and we supported. And I recall Pastor Vish going there to, I think, give her all the funds that were raised, purchase a Jeep, because they have a season there when you have rain,
Flood.
and it is very, very flooded.
Right.
And prior to my going to Guatemala, the late Michael Thompson, who was also my Sunday school teacher at the time, he went, and he couldn't handle it because of injuries sustained early in his life and a leg that really, you know, he wasn't able to handle, so he had to come back. And when we went, it was the same mud, especially in the jungle areas.
Yes.
But God help us, and we stayed the course for the
And-
3 weeks.
And Michael was the son of J.C.L.
Jason.
Brother
Thompson.
J, yeah.
Brother J.C.L.
Brother J,
Thompson.
yeah.
Jason
We
Thompson,
affectionately
yeah.
call him Brother J.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
one of our senior men in this church,
Yes.
Yes.
and Bible teacher, and
Absolutely.
Sunday school teacher, and
And
whatever.
Radio ministry,
Yeah,
I remember him
whatever,
very well.
yeah,
Even before I
yeah.
came back to Calvary, I used to listen to
Yeah,
him on Sunday
yeah.
mornings.
Yes, and the studio is named after him.
Yes.
Jason Thompson.
Great.
We grew up
man of
in
God.
that era with powerful speakers like Brother J, Brother Dansbury, and then you had the Pritchett sisters
Yes.
and the Youth for Christ ministries. So we grew up under that type of thing back there. But I really wish today we still had the Youth for Christ going on here.
Yeah. Well, I'll just mention one other point about the Ambassadors for Christ. I remember once we visited an area, and as we were setting up, this lady sent and asked for prayers, and I indicated that I would come after we got through with the message, and her name was Arlene Campbell, and most of the senior citizens here would remember Arlene Campbell. And when I visited with her, she told me a group had just left there, and she sent and asked them to pray for her, and they said they had to go to church, so they didn't have the time. So I went and prayed with her. I led her to the Lord, and she has inspired my life because she was paralyzed from the neck down. And until she died, I and many in Calvary ministered to her.
Did you encounter any problems on the street? Like sometimes when you had street meetings, like ruffians or people trying to break it up? Or-
No, we
praise
had
the Lord.
in my tenure. We had one incident where people called the police. It was on.
Okay. Well, let's fast forward a bit to the Billy Graham ministries now.
Okay.
From the early days. Now, I remember